Cocky's Revenge. Cocky was a very little cockerel, but he had a golden beak, a flaming red crest, and the most beautiful of feathers. However, as he was so small and so shy, the hens in the hen run made fun of him. They thought it was very funny to call him Cocky, because if there was something he decidedly was not, it was cocky. On the contrary, he was the very opposite of pleased with himself. He was modest to a fault. Life was very hard and lonely for him. Hens, like humans, hate difference, and he was different. So all day long he came close to them, or tried to feed in the troughs where they fed. They chased him away. He was most afraid, however, of a huge cockerel called Alf the Great. If Cocky was the humblest of cockerels, Alf the Great was insufferably conceited. He strutted around on his fat, feathery legs, puffing out his fat, feathery chest, cawing, "I am the greatest. I am the best. Just look at my fine feathery tail and admire. If the sun comes out in the morning, it is only to look at me. If I did not crow at dawn, the sun would never rise." And all the hens and all the chicks believed him and followed him around, clucking and cackling. "Yes, yes, you are the greatest and the best, and we know that the sun would never rise if you did not crow at dawn." One night, Alf the Great was so exhausted as a result of all his bragging and boasting that he overslept. Cocky, meanwhile, woke up at dawn fresh and full of life. He felt an irresistible urge to crow, and before he knew what he was doing, he let out the most piercing cock-a-doodle-doo, which awakened the whole world around him, including Alf the Great. And soon after, to Cocky's stunned disbelief, the sun started to rise, scattering light and shadow amongst the woods and meadows. On hearing Cocky's cry, Alf the Great had uttered an angry squawk. "How dare you crow in my hen-yard, you tiny twerp!" He flew at the little cockerel, who for the very first time in his life was starting to feel rather pleased with himself. Round and round the hen run they both ran in a cloud of dust, squawks, and feathers. All the hens and chicks watched, screeching, "Kill, kill, pluck his feathers off!" Because Alf the Great was so fat with gorging himself on all the grain and worms in the hen-yard, he was not at all as fast or nimble as Cocky. The hens and chicks looked on in dismay. Not only had the sun risen at the cry of the tiny little cockerel, but though Alf the Great, their hero, lord and master, ran and ran, Cocky ran faster. What in 1,000 earthworms was happening to their world and master? At last, Alf the Great, puffing and panting, gave up, furious and frustrated, fluffed up his feathers and clawed the ground. "I'll catch him yet," he thought. "I'll bide my time and get my revenge, and teach that pesky little cockerel a lesson he will never forget." For the time being he ignored Cocky, who anyway kept at a safe distance. Some time later Cocky heard voices from the path winding down to the hen run just below the farmhouse. They were the farmer's daughters. One of them held the prettiest little hen that Cocky had ever seen. So tiny and so pretty was she at first, that at first he thought he must be dreaming the most beautiful dreams. He blinked, scratched himself, and gazed in spellbound wonder. And his wonder increased when he saw the two little girls open the gate of the hen run and place the little hen on the ground just by him. It had been their pet for a while, but they'd grown tired of it. "Good luck, little hen," they said, and ran off giggling. Cocky rushed up to the little hen, crying out, "Hi there! You're just as small as me, but far prettier." What a nice way of greeting someone, thought the little hen. She had never been in a hen run before, so she did not know the ways of chickens. Suddenly, just behind her, she heard an angry squawk. "What are you doing here in my chicken run, you miserable little midget?" demanded Alf the Great, bearing down on the little hen, his chest puffed out. The little hen turned round in a panic, and remembering the way Cocky had greeted her, she thought that this must be the polite form of greeting between chickens, whatever their size or sex, so she blurted out, "Hi there, you're just as small as me, but far prettier." "What?" thundered Alf the Great, flying at her in a storm of furious flapping wings. Never had he been so insulted before. How dare this little chit of a hen make fun of him in front of all his hens and chicks? He would peck her to death. She, at least, would be easy to catch. Meanwhile, all the hens, who were jealous of the little hen's beauty, screamed and screeched, "Pluck her, pluck her, pluck her clean! Pluck her, pluck her, pluck her clean!" Alf the Great was just about to pin down the terrified little hen when suddenly he felt something stinging him plumb in the middle of his big feathery bum. It was Cocky's razor-sharp beak. Alf the Great spun round, squawking, only to find that the little cockerel was now clinging on to his tail. Round and round Alf the Great spun, in a desperate effort to shake Cocky's beak off his feathery bum. And with each turn a feather was plucked out of his once magnificent feathery bum. At long last he collapsed, exhausted, defeated, humiliated. Meanwhile, Cocky went up to the little hen, asked whether she was all right, and promised to protect her for evermore. She gazed up at him and fluttered her pretty feathers. "You are the bravest and most marvellous little cockerel there has ever been," she cooed. "And you are the prettiest little hen I have ever seen," Cocky cooed back. "What is your name?" "I have no name, which is a real shame," the little hen murmured sadly. "There is no shame in having no name," the little cockerel asserted, placing a protective wing around her. "And besides, I love the sound of no name. So, sweet little one of my heart, my name for you is No Name." And from that day on, where Cocky went, No Name followed. They soon had a large family of little chicks, each with their own name. And every dawn Cocky was the one to raise the sun and the world with his triumphant cock-a-doodle-doo. And what about Alf the Great? He no longer crowed at dawn or boasted about how great he was. He had learnt another lesson too. Woe beside those who try to bully little cockerels.